Hi everyone, Helen Blunden here. Hope you're happy, healthy and well. It's time for a new book review today, and today I have the pleasure of sharing my thoughts about this delightful little book called She and Her Cat by Makoto Shinkai and Nagakawa. And it's been translated into English by Ginny Tapley Takamori. This book was published in 2022. As you can see, it's a library book again, simply because I have been enjoying reading Japanese literature, translated literature of course. This one struck my fancy because the reason is that in October this year, we had to put down our cat Pud, and it was quite sudden, and I was still dealing with the grief and the loss of not having him around. And he was my sole cat. He was my companion through COVID and afterwards. And losing him, I just wanted to read books that had animals in them, and also stories about grief and loss and how animals help our lives. And this one, She and Her Cat, was one that I saw at the library and I had to borrow. The book is about different cats and different humans. There's really a series of 4 vignettes. Each vignette is all about a relationship of a cat with its human and vice versa. As you can understand, these 4 stories all relate to somehow grief, loss, sadness, pain, and how these cats come into these humans' lives to change them for the better. And indeed, that's what my cat did. These stories really were quite heartfelt and quite touching. Obviously, all the stories in here are women and their cats, so it's really it's such a delightful read and a wonderful read, especially if you want something that is very light, that is very deep, but also has some kind of spiritual element to it, and I'll explain what that is. Now, when I looked up into the author, Makoto Shinkai, I saw that he is actually quite a very famous Japanese anime filmmaker. He's huge. He's a celebrity. I have not heard of him simply because I don't read anime, and this is one of the life lessons that I'll park and I'll come back to later on. So I was reading about this bloke, and he is quite famous, and he actually created a film, a short vignette film based on this story, She and Her Cat, but this is the debut novel. Now, I have to say that Naruki Nagakawa is also a screenwriter and a novelist, but he's got the second billing here, and so I do wonder if they worked on this book together. Maybe Naruki helped Makoto out, I'm not entirely sure. So ultimately though, the designer and the creator of the story and the anime film takes the first dibs. As I mentioned, She and Her Cat has 4 different vignette stories, and all related to the behaviors and the relationships of cats and their humans. What struck me as being different was that there wasn't much of the supernatural element that are usually in Japanese books. However, I say that with a wry look on my face, because the cats are actually talking to each other, and also the cats are talking to the humans, even though the humans don't understand what the cats are saying. There is some kind of language barrier, obviously, between humans and felines, but that makes it all the more heartening and adorable. What did I like about this book? I liked that the cats talked to each other, and the cats had a real freedom about them. They weren't like the humans who were in their own heads, who were in pain, who dealt with painful memories, who were lonely, who were isolated. They kind of made do. That's what cats do. No matter what you throw to cats, they'll actually just continue being a cat, and that's why we love them. And the humans really, really needed that companionship from a cat for them to start to reflect on their own behaviors, see the world for what it is, and see the beauty in the world. In this book, I also liked the dog John. I had to chuckle with his name, John. And John actually reminded me, remember that TV show, I think it was in the 80s, it was called Home Improvement, of that guy had ran a home improvement show, but he had a neighbor called Wilson, and Wilson was over the fence, and he would always ask questions to Wilson, and Wilson would return his responses with some very deep and meaningful spiritual kind of answers to the very inane questions that this home improvement guy asked. John the dog reminds me of Wilson, because the cats would come to Wilson and would try and ask him questions so they could ascertain the strange behaviors that they would see their humans doing. Ultimately, I saw that this book is quite spiritual in some way. For those of you who might be that way inclined, for example, John talks about a previous world, a world that was before the world that we know it, where we were all light. I took that as being of the thinking or the ideas that somehow this world that we are living in now is just a liminal world, and that we came from and will be going to the light, going to a place that is much more beautiful, which is a paradise, which is lovely, which is a place that we will return to because we were once there before our physical selves were on this world. So it has some kind of spirituality in this book. For me, I wanted to read this book because I was dealing with my own grief with Pud, and as I was reading this book, my bookmark was a photo of my adorable little boy who has transformed my life completely. Even now, while looking at him, I get teared up. It is just amazing how deep and profound our pets make impact on our lives. Reading books like this make it more relevant and make it more evident for us that animals and us, we really need each other. Even though we might not understand each other, we really give something to each other that we both need. One of the big things that struck me here was when I started looking into Makoto Shinkai as the anime filmmaker and the creator. I thought to myself, I've not read anime before, and there is a library here close by that has an excellent graphic novel collection, and the librarian there showed me some of the graphic collections, and in fact I borrowed a few books and I reviewed those graphic novels here on this channel some videos ago if you're interested to see what they were like. But he did show me a huge anime collection. He told me that anime is quite popular and it's read differently. You read anime from the back forward. I started to think, well, the reason that the She and Her Cat was made into a book was more likely to introduce the story to a wider audience and introduce it to the audience of women. And that got me down the rabbit warren of starting to read, well, how many women read anime? And let me tell you, there is a lot. Apparently there's this huge market for anime for women. But I thought, well, I'm in my 50s. How many middle-aged women read anime, and do they have stories for middle-aged women? So I've got some statistics, and I found out that in Japan, as of 2022, from the ages of 50 to 59, only 12.7% of people read anime. And even that doesn't tell you whether it's males or females. From ages 60 to 69, it's only 4%. So that goes to show that maybe in this situation, the story was such that it was applicable to such a wider market that they changed it from anime and actually created a debut novel so the novel could have a bigger market. Now, this is my assumption. I'm glad they did this because otherwise I would never have read an anime story, and even less would I have ever seen an anime film. Thank you for putting it into a novel format. I hope they continue doing this so that we have access to more different stories that are in different formats as well. Okay, then that's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Bye for now.